Somewhere in your city right now, a detective is standing over a body, trying to answer one question: who did this, and why? You have seen this scene 1,000 times in movies and crime shows. You assume it is a modern story. It is not. Nearly 500,000 years before the first police badge existed, someone asked the exact same question, standing over the exact same kind of scene. And the answer they found changed the way scientists understand human nature forever. Your instinct is to think violence is a modern disease, something that came with cities, weapons, greed, and crowding, something civilization created. But the real answer is far stranger. The evidence for the oldest known murder was not found in a city. It was found at the bottom of a 50-foot vertical shaft, deep inside a cave in northern Spain, buried under thousands of other bones that had been falling into the darkness for hundreds of thousands of years. The site is called Cima de los Huesos, which simply means the pit of bones. Cavers discovered it in the 1970s. What they found inside was strange enough on its own. 28 individuals, all belonging to an early human species, all seemingly dumped down the same narrow shaft over a long span of time. No stone tools, no signs of habitation, just bodies. Scientists spent decades debating why. Did they fall in by accident? Were they placed there on purpose? Nobody could prove intent because bones alone do not tell stories. Bones just sit there until someone learns how to read them. That is where one skull changed everything. In 2015, a team led by paleoanthropologist Nohemi Sala examined a fragmented skull from the pit, catalogued simply as cranium 17. Using CT scans and 3D reconstruction, her team mapped the surface of the skull in extraordinary detail. What they found were two fractures above the left eyebrow, almost identical in shape, positioned close together, and critically they showed no sign of healing. Here is why that detail matters more than anything else in this story. A living skull that heals shows curved bone growth around a wound, evidence the person survived long enough for the body to respond. These two fractures showed nothing of the sort. They happened at, or extremely close to, the moment of death. One wound could have come from a fall, a rock, an accident. Two wounds, nearly identical, striking the same small region of the skull from slightly different angles, are far harder to explain by chance. Salah's team ran the numbers anyway. They modeled hundreds of possible accidental scenarios, testing whether a fall down the shaft or a tumble against rock could produce that exact pattern twice on the same skull. The models kept failing. The most consistent explanation was blunt force trauma, delivered deliberately by another member of the group, using some kind of handheld object. In their own words, published in the journal PLOS ONE, this was very likely the first clear case of interpersonal lethal violence recorded in the human fossil record. Pause on that for a second. Not the first murder ever committed. The first murder science can actually prove. Consider what it took just to reach that conclusion. No witnesses, no confession, no weapon left behind at any obvious scene, only a fragment of bone, buried under sediment and time, waiting for someone with the right tools to ask it the right question. Every other possible explanation had to be tested first and eliminated one at a time. A rockfall from the cave ceiling above the shaft, a slip down the pit that struck the skull twice on the way down, damage from scavengers long after death. Each scenario was modeled, measured, and compared against the actual wound pattern. Each one failed to match. What remained standing, after everything else collapsed, was the least comfortable explanation. It was also the only one that fit the evidence completely, which raises the harder question: why would an early human, roughly 430,000 years ago, kill another member of their own small, tightly bonded group? These were not strangers passing through a crowded city. These were bands of maybe 20 or 30 individuals, entirely dependent on each other for food, protection, and survival. Killing someone in that world was not like killing a stranger today. It meant losing a hunter, a caregiver, a piece of the only safety net you had. And yet it happened anyway. Paleoanthropologist Jose Maria Bermudez de Castro, who has spent decades studying this same cave system, has argued that early human groups were far more socially complex than we once assumed. They had structure. They likely had disputes over mates, resources, and status. They very probably had grief, jealousy, and rage, the same raw ingredients that drive conflict today. The tools were cruder, the emotions were not. Picture the scene his research points toward. Not a court, not a trial, nothing resembling justice as you understand it. Just a small group of people, maybe huddled near a fire, watching one of their own carry a body toward a hole in the ground that dropped 50 feet into absolute darkness. No ceremony you would recognize, no words you could translate, only the weight of knowing that whatever happened between two people had ended in a way the whole group would now have to live with, in a space too small for anyone to simply disappear from. That closeness is the detail most true crime stories skip over. Modern murder often involves distance, a stranger, a random act, someone the victim never really knew. This was the opposite. Whoever swung that object twice into cranium 17 likely shared food with that person the day before, slept near them, depended on them to watch for predators while they slept. The betrayal, if that is what it was, happened inside the one relationship that was supposed to be safest. This is where the story stops being about one skull and in one cave and starts being about you. In 2016, a much larger study led by researcher Jose Maria Gomez examined lethal violence across more than 1,000 mammal species, then compared the rates found across the primate family tree, all the way up to modern humans. Gomez and his team estimated a baseline level of lethal violence rooted in our evolutionary ancestry, a number describing how often individuals of a species kill their own kind, independent of culture or weapons. Humans landed close to what that model predicted for a social, territorial primate. Not because of guns, not because of cities, because of biology we inherited long before either existed. That number is unsettling, but it is also strangely freeing. It means violence in your species did not begin with war or money or modern crime. It runs in a line stretching back through hundreds of thousands of years of shared ancestry, expressed differently in every era, but never fully absent from any of them. Think about what that means for the fear response sitting in your own chest right now. That tightening you feel walking to your car alone at night. That flicker of alertness when a stranger moves too close, too fast. You did not invent that feeling. Neither did your parents or their parents. Somewhere in a version of you standing at the mouth of a cave 430,000 years ago, that same tightening kept a small group of humans alive, watching each other as carefully as they watched the darkness outside. Notice how specific that fear usually is. You rarely feel it around a crowd of total strangers in broad daylight. You feel it in the quiet moments, the empty stairwell, the dark parking lot, the unfamiliar footsteps behind you at night. Evolution did not build you to fear everyone equally. It built you to fear exactly the conditions under which Cranium-17 most likely died. Isolation, darkness, proximity to someone whose intentions you could not fully read. 430,000 years later, your nervous system still remembers the shape of that danger, even if you have never once thought about the pit of bones in Spain. Here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Cranium-17 was not found alone at the bottom of that shaft, discarded like an outsider. The individual was found among the group, part of the same collection of bodies that other researchers believe may have been deliberately placed there over generations, almost like an ancient communal disposal of the dead. Which means the group did not exile the body of the person killed within it. They may have kept caring for their dead the same way, murder victim or not. Violence and grief sitting side by side in the same dark pit, the same way they still sit side by side in a modern courtroom or a modern headline. So why does this story matter to you, scrolling through it on a screen that did not exist a generation ago, in a world that early human could never have imagined? Because the instinct that killed Cranium-17 and the instinct that made someone lay that body to rest with the others anyway are both still running inside you right now. The rage that flares when you feel threatened, the loyalty that makes you protect the people closest to you, even after they have hurt you. These are not new inventions of modern psychology. They are ancient hardware, running underneath a much newer set of software. Modern researchers studying violence today, from criminologists to evolutionary psychologists, keep circling back to the same uncomfortable conclusion. Society did not create the capacity for violence in humans. Society mostly succeeds, imperfectly, in restraining a capacity that was already there, sculpted by hundreds of thousands of years of competition, jealousy, fear, and survival. The rules change. Courts, laws, and consequences exist now that did not exist in that cave. But the underlying spark, the one that turned a disagreement into two fractures above someone's eyebrow, has barely changed at all. Next time you feel that surge of anger you cannot fully explain, or that strange flicker of fear in an empty parking lot, remember where it came from. It is not a flaw in you. It is not proof that something is broken. It is proof that you are carrying, quite literally in the structure of your own brain, the same inheritance that once stood at the edge of a dark shaft in Spain, deciding what to do with a body. So the next time a detective stands over a scene, asking who did this and why, remember that question is not new at all. It is the oldest question your species has ever asked itself, standing at a cave mouth, 500,000 years before anyone thought to write it down.